Alright, so this video we're going to be talking about the Unstable Bomber GULPED build. This build is quite different from the Bingo, and it's also very different from Jaws, if you're thinking it's similar because it's Unstable Bomber. There's two very big differences both between the Jaws and the GULPED. Jaw has Unstable Bomber scale of crits. GULPED has Unstable Bomber scale of a weak spot. The GULPED and the Jaws are actually terrible pairings, and that is something I quickly want to mention before jumping into the build itself. In fact, for Jaws, you're better off pairing with Bingo, which is fucking funny, I know, but that is literally how it is. Mark the target with Bingo, then switch back to Jaws. For the GULPED, we're not going to be pairing it with Jaws at all because it doesn't actually match and synergize well at all. This build relies on keeping a fair distance between you and your enemy, because the way Unstable Bomber scales with this build is purely based on distance, and that is because of the key armor using the sleek leather jacket. The sleek leather jacket has an interesting perk here where every meter away we get Unstable Bomber damage plus 2%. I've tested this and so far I've found no cap, so you can go right up to hit reg distance, so this is pretty insane. Now on the GULPED itself, as we've mentioned, it is an 80% chance to trigger the Unstable Bomber on a weak spot hit. This is why it is a headshot build, and if you're wondering why don't you just run the key armor boots, the Hunstmen boots, that is bullseye. This requires you to proc bullseye on the enemy. Now there is a way you could make the boots work. That would be using Wildfire or Bingo as your offhand to mark them, or Bingo. Bingo is actually also another fantastic offhand for this weapon. With that said, the main sort of thing about the Unstable Bomber GULPED is that its weak spot damage is converted to Unstable Bomber damage, and so we want to max out our weak spot, even more so focusing weak spot than we do with the Bingo. You may know a lot of people do tend to mix in either crit or white damage using weapon damage, or maybe even munitions amplifier on their gloves for the Bingo. However, with GULPED we have to prioritize weak spot as much as we can. So there's a lot of weak spot in this build, and there are some incomplete mods here because I have run out of controllers. So without further ado, let's jump directly into the build. So obviously we've got the GULPED. I've got it at a tier 3 plus 10 calibration, and the calibration blueprint I'm actually running on it is of course rapid style. Double elemental damage. Now you can do either double weak spot preferably to scale your Unstable Bomber, but I've had to go with elemental damage because that was all that was available to me. For the attachments, we are running the legendary suppressor, precision optic, tac laser, and SR. There is one cool thing to note about the GULPED. It is an Unstable Bomber sniper, and this has no damage drop off because Blast has no damage drop off. Could go for the large break, which gives you accuracy, go for a stabilizer, attach anything that doesn't have to be ranged. In fact, integrated flash hider is a great attachment for the stability. Stability, if you're wondering, is the aim idle sway, which is when you aim down sights, your weapon will sway automatically without you moving your mouse. We can actually min-max that and remove as much as that as possible with this build because we don't have to rely on range, which is really, really nice. Again, with that said, I am not using a BIS calibration blueprint. I, again, would prefer a rapid double weak spot for this sniper, especially with its unique perk scaling of weak spot. With the actual mod on the GULPED itself, we are running a munitions amplifier. Now, there is two different mods you can run here, munitions amplifier blue like I have, or you can run heavy explosives. Now, why I'm not going to mention the other three is because this one down here, Reckless Bomber, scales with crit. We're not building crit at all. We don't want to build crit with this build. Bombarder Souvenir, this is just mag refill, 10% is pretty shit. Supercharge, you could try this one, but it relies on consecutively hitting. We're using a sniper at distance. That's probably not going to be happening at all. So either heavy explosives or blue munitions is actually your best bet for mods on the weapon itself. For the Deagle, we're running either Vulnerability Amplifier for extra vulnerability, or what is it? It's attack, right? And then the other mod you could run is Hunter's Perk on the Wildfire. Hunter's Perk basically gives you like a 20% resistance on a marked target that you proc, so it's actually a very good perk for PvP if you want to run that on your offhand. For the melee weapon, you can run whatever you want. It doesn't matter, it never has mattered. A carrier, katana, axe, whatever the hell you want. And again, I think I've got to mention the attachments for the Deagle, Camouflage Suppressor, Reflex Sight, Tactics, and Magazine. Again, we are maxing out our range here on the Wildfire. We're also running the Precision Style Double Weak Spot, obviously building into that weak spot for the Wildfire as well. Now for the armor, which is obviously the most important part of this build. Some parts are incomplete. I'm going to quickly mention that. We are building the PvE set right now. We will switch over to the PvP set later in the video, which uses obviously the Savior set. So we're using the 3-piece Renegade for PvE alongside the heavy duty shoes for 10% max HP, the sleek leather jacket, and this is that part that is crucial to the build that I mentioned in the start of the video. Every meter away, we increase our unstable bomber damage by 2%. So this is crucial to the build and for sniper. Again, this two key factors of this build is distance and hitting headshot. You're not going to proc unstable bomb without hitting a weak spot headshot, and you're not going to deal enough unstable bomber damage if you're close to your target. This is a proper sniper build that relies on good aim. I just want to quickly mention that again. If you're not confident in your aiming abilities, I wouldn't recommend this build. Bingo is much more friendly for beginners. This is a much more challenging build, but it can also be very rewarding, and it's actually very good for 1vx long-range sniping because of the unstable bomber procs. And it's actually why I think the heavy mod on the sniper is fantastic for that stagger. Obviously, we all hate the stagger. For the rest of the armor though, again, we're running that 3-piece Renegade for PvE. We'll cover mods last here. We're running the Bastille pants for that extra damage, that weapon damage. Just overall, just a nice 1-piece set bonus. And then for the last piece, again running the heavy duty shoes for that HP. For the mods in PvE, we are running Precise Strike, pretty self-explanatory. More weak spot damage is always a good thing, especially for this build, to increase our unstable bomber damage. Stacking that with the weapon damage as one of the preferred second suffix. For the preferred third and fourth suffixes for both PvE and PvP, you either want health or damage reduce, weapon damage reduction, and a third possible suffix you could look for is status damage reduction, but preferably maxing out your weapon damage reduction is crucial here. Of course, you could actually start stacking status damage reduction depending on how many people start running this build after this video goes live, but that is beside the point. On the mask, we're running point detonation. Obviously, this is crucial, especially for sniper. You're picking off players. You're not really going to be hitting targets that are clumped together. I actually got an exclusive roll here, plus unstable bomber damage. It's a shit roll, though. to give it the benefit of the doubt, it's a shit roll. Again, I didn't get a good opportunity for mods for this build because I'm out of controllers, which does suck. You're looking out for prioritizing a weak spot substat, and third or fourth, you're looking for status or blast or element. Status, blast, elemental, all three of those are good, and obviously you want to prior that weak spot for the unstable bomber conversion. For our gloves, we're running obviously weak spot damage boost, maxing out a weak spot, weapon damage as our second prio, or elemental, status, or blast as your third priors. My boots, I'm running covered advanced. This is just a nice damage increase. We don't take damage for 4 seconds, so in theory, if you play well, you should always have this up. There should be really no exception, especially when you're sniping. Weak spot damage boost on the jacket, of course, for PvE. We don't really need to run any of those legendary damage reduction perks or mods on PvE. For the pants, we're running obviously unstoppable precision. Obviously, we're keeping our distance with this build. That is very important. So we are using weak spot and weapon damage as suffixes on that unstoppable precision. Unstoppable precision, by the way, is just increased weak spot damage the further you are away, up to 40%, I think, up to 40 meters. So it is a fantastic perk to use, or mod to use. I guess that leaves us with the cradle. So the cradle for PvE, I think I already have it set up. Yep. Now we did have to sacrifice the handgun enhancement to get all of the mods to work, because there is a lot of damage mods you need to run with the cradle. This is the hard mode cradle, by the way. The spreadsheet in the description and in the pinned comment will have the novice cradle, but we're running long range enhancement, lone walker. This is great for solo play in PvE. Series detonation, this is a seasonal tag. Tactical combo, obviously self-explanatory, just a fantastic all-round perk. Hitting weak spot, status damage increase, really, really good. Steady hand, this one is actually really good, because if we switch to our Wildfire or Bingo, we mark the target, switch back, and now we have a 20% weak spot damage increase. That then converts into unstable bomber damage. So this is a fantastic perk to run when you're pairing a bullseye offhand to proc on your enemy or targets. Second to that, we're running Bounty Hunter. Bounty Hunter is, again, much like Steady Hands. We're going to be using our offhand, especially in PvE when there's a lot of ads around. Switch to your Wildfire, kill an enemy. Now you have a 15-second damage buff. That is going to give you a huge boost. Even in PvP, trying to proc this is going to be very, very good for you. 35% converting that to unstable bomber damage is fantastic. So if you can you know, try and get a kill with the pistol. Even if it's just a down player, you're going to be benefiting yourself in the long term with the sniper. So the last but not least, we've got First Round Blast. This is again just another unstable bomber increase after reloading. Not that great for sniping because you have to constantly reload. So that is the PvE cradle. Now we're going to jump over to the PvP side of things, because I think I've covered everything for the PvE setup, so I guess we can jump onto the PvP setup. Now there's a quick TLDR with my setup here that obviously I will fix in the spreadsheet, is that I don't have the Savior boots and I don't have enough Starchrome for them. So just keep in mind that the heavy duty shoes would be changed for the Savior set boots. So again, we're running the 4-piece Savior set. Imagine the heavy duty shoes are the Savior boots. So 4-piece Savior, we get those nice 4-piece Savior buffs. Pretty much essential for PvP at this point. And then we have the sleek leather jacket. For the 5th piece of armor, we are running the Bastille gloves. So Savior helmet, mask, pants, boots. You can do it in any 4-piece order you want. Again, you could use Bastille gloves as the 5th piece. And then last but not least, we're running the sleek leather jacket. Obviously, same as the PvE setup. It is a build about keeping distance and landing headshots. And then the main mods for this build, they have changed a little bit. So we're obviously still using Precise Strike for the weak spot damage increase on the heads and point detonation on our mask. Same with the gloves, weak spot, and the boots, covered advance. And then the chest, I actually didn't change this one. We are using resist advantage with the weapon damage reduction mods that come from the Nisa vendor, which is the Sproutlet vendor. You get the battle suffix boxes, and you're trying to get resist advantage with battle suffixes for this build, just to increase your tankiness against bingos and other weapon damage based builds. Last but not least, on the pants, we're running unstoppable precision. So not too much has changed from the PvE to the PvP. Really, the only thing that has changed is the armor. You're switching from a 3-piece Renegade, Heavy, and Bastille to sleek leather jacket to 4-piece Savior, 1-piece Bastille, and sleek leather jacket. The weapon mods have not really changed. I've put on Hunter's perk here because I know a lot of people run this. It's a fantastic perk to run, especially for your offhand with this build, since we're simply using our wildfire in close range and to mark targets, then switching back to our gold lore. And for the cradle, not too much has actually changed either. We simply swapped out Lone Walker for the sprints perk, which is increased movement speed, which I think is pretty important in PvP. You could also swap that out for Sky Operation. This does get a little bit complex because there is certain things we can't run that I would like, such as Sky Operation, handgun enhancement, but you're going to have to decide on some sacrifices or run what I run. So you could sacrifice this bounty hunter one, but then if you get a target, you kill that target with your wildfire, then you're losing 35%. You can't really swap steady hand because that's another 20% that you'll lose. So it's kind of like, what are you going to sacrifice to get what with the PvP cradle? You could sacrifice the first round blast, because that's actually a hard one to proc, especially on a... So maybe we could potentially put Sky Operation over that one, because it's not going to proc that often, so we're not reloading and shooting every 2 or 1 bullet. So there's going to be some sacrifices you have to make, because there's simply so many possible options you can run for the PvP cradle. You could sacrifice, you know, tactical combo even. This is a fairly hard one to proc, and it's weapon damage at that, so it's not going to benefit you too much on the unstable bomber side of things. Maybe we could put the handgun enhancement over this so we buff our wildfire a little. We could put first round blast back on over here. So this is a little bit more of a complex cradle because there's some options that you're limited to not being able to run, but play around with what you don't think will be useful. In fact, I think this is maybe what I would probably run in PvP with this set. So Sky Operation for the damage reduction, most importantly. Long range enhancement, obviously a no-brainer. Sprint, movement speed is important in PvP. Serious detonation, also pretty good. First round blast, and then status and steady hand. I actually think these two are very important because these two alone are, 55% weak spot damage increase by simply killing a target with your wildfire, and that buff lasts, 15 seconds, and this one I believe is just while they're marked in general. So, you know, this also works for teammates they mark for you, so I actually think steady hand is literally a must for any build at this point, especially with how many bingos are out. Team play is an important factor. Steady hand is kind of a no-brainer. There's kind of those sacrifices you're going to have to make to build a PvP cradle, as I've said. So that is really all there is change-wise to the PvP and PvE setup. They're very similar, actually. which is kind of a nice change because there's less you need to swap out. Really that big thing, the only main thing, is the 4-piece savior from the 3-piece Renegade. I almost forgot to record the Deviations and Consumables part of the video. So for the drink, you want to use the Whimsical drink. This increases status damage by 25%. For food, you can use the Assorted Canned Fruit. That's a 25% weak spot. Good, we want that for our builds. Or you can use for PvP, probably, is the Safety Sandwich, is what most people use. For PvP, some people also use Stardust Ratatouille. That's what I like using because I like the movement speed. And the other sort of consumables that you can use is stacking the lunch meat combos. Now, I made a full video that I'm going to link in the description, but you can't stack the food effects, but you can stack the bonus effects. So as you can see, these lunch combos is made with a bunch of different meats. So this one here gradually restores HP is made with goat meat. This one for plus 25 stam and a plus 40 stam, made with the deer meat and rabbit meat. And if I hit C for buffs here, you can see that I have both of these buffs in here. I don't know where it is here. Here it is, stamina buff and super stamina boost. So these are both stacked, giving me 65% extra stamina. So you can stack all of those bonus effects as well. This includes the sea bass, which is a pretty strong one and a pretty common one to use that I absolutely recommend going out and doing some fishing. So if I chuck in sea bass here, this bonus effect is 10% fire rate. Fantastic, really good one to stack on top of everything else. Now for the deviations, I highly recommend obviously black hole and PvP. It is literally a must. In PvE, you actually have a few options. You can use gel if you're doing casual PvE. You can use the mini feaster if there's a lot of ads. Because the way Mini Feaster works is he will mark targets, and every target that is marked will increase weapon damage up to 84%, which is massive, by the way. So this is a really strong deviation for bosses that have ads, such as Leah Labs, Forsaken Giant, what else is there? You've got Siren Boss and EX1. All those bosses with a lot of ads, really strong deviation to use. Other deviations that you could use in PvE are the Butterfly, which is also pretty good. This one, I believe, is 30% extra weak spot. This one would increase our bomber damage, which is really nice. The other one we could use is probably the Wolf, or the Hound is also really strong. So there's those deviations that we could use for both PvE and PvP. I actually might as well tack on where you actually get the mods as well, because I know this is actually a pretty important segment of the videos. So where you get your mods is all the silos drop weapon mods, and the specific monolith you're looking for unstable bomber weapon mods, so the heavy mod for the weapon, the Gaia Cliff monolith pro and hard mode, that'll drop your unstable bomber weapon mods. Now silos will drop you more individual pieces. Silo Alpha Pro and Hard mode drops your helmets. Silo EX1, the icon's not showing here, drops mask mods. Silo Sigma drops Pro and Hard glove mods. Silo PHI drops your boots, Hard and Pro. Theta drops the chest, Hard and Pro. Hard and Pro PSI will drop your pants. That, I think, is everything I needed to cover. Oh, attachments. So weapon attachments actually come from the riddles in the open world. Curious on how to find riddles, you can go to the Once Human Map Genie. I'll quickly show my screen here. Once Human Map Genie, you simply go on the left here and type in this link. I'll put it in the description. You hit hide all, and then you can hit accessory, and this is where you'll get your attachments. So if I'm looking for the extended pistol mag, and it shows me where it is. I've already checked it off, and a really cool feature is you can check off stuff you've done so you can keep track of your progression. So that is a really cool feature of the site, and again, that tracks all of the attachments, which is really nice. That is everything I needed to cover. That is pretty much the entire video. This has taken up a little bit more recording than I thought it would. I'll see you guys on the next one, hopefully in the faction scenario, which should be a lot of fun. Yes.